Streaming now, this is the Wood TV Live Desk.
And good morning, everyone. Phil Panarski here with the Wood TV Live Desk. Hope you're having a great start to your Tuesday. Target 8 Investigator Susan Samples joins us now as she's here to talk about her latest piece that aired yesterday in our 6 p.m. newscast, detailing a deadly crash that happened last Thanksgiving and a dangerous trend that we kind of went down a little bit of a rabbit hole once Susan started to do a little bit more investigation into that. It's an incredible story that is available to you right now over on our website, woodtv.com. But Susan, thank you so much for being here first off. And I know I speak for everybody who has seen it already, that it was just an amazing, amazing story. And we thank you so much for being able to put it all together and bringing it to us.
Thank you, Phil. I just appreciated everyone who helped me put that together, which were a lot of folks, including the woman who lost her life on Thanksgiving Day. Her mother was exceptionally helpful. She did not want to do an on-camera interview, but I met with her, and she was really helpful to me in learning about Nevaeh Downs, the young woman who was killed in the Thanksgiving Day accident. She was just an incredible young lady who, there were so many social media tributes to her. She was, if people don't know the story, she was 18 and she was in the car with her best friend, Ella VC, and they were trying to jump the hills on Jericho. There's a really steep hill on Jericho Avenue Northeast between 10 Mile and Crows, and Ella and Nevaeh were doing what so many kids have done before them in terms of trying to catch air on this really steep hill. So kids have been doing that for a long time. So I just wanted to get it out there so people know. I mean, Nevaeh Downs' mom didn't even know that hill existed. They're actually from the Northview area, so she had never even heard of this hill on Jericho. So I want to get it out there so anyone who's watching this or hearing this, and particularly those who know young drivers, and if you live anywhere in the area of Plainfield Township, make sure that the kids know this is what can happen when you're a teenager and you think you're invincible and you drive really fast. They were going more than 100 miles an hour trying to jump the hill, and had actually done it a couple times that night. They were in Nevaeh Downs' car, her Jetta, and she did it a couple times. This is according to the sheriff's report, the Kent County Sheriff's Office, which did an extensive investigation on this. Nevaeh had jumped it a couple times, and then there was actually a surveillance camera at Rockford High School that showed the Jetta coming in and turning around in the parking lot to do that and repeat that. And before the third and final run, the Jetta stopped, and Nevaeh and Ella switched places. So Ella was then behind the wheel and Nevaeh was the passenger. And actually Nevaeh was recording on a cell phone from the passenger seat. That of course has not been released, that video, and I read about the description of it from the deputy who reviewed it. Actually, I think it was the school resource officer at Rockford who reviewed it and then told the deputy, the main investigator on this case. And so she was from the passenger side, but it gave evidence and proof of what was going on, because they jumped a hill, they were laughing, they were yelling like kids do, like teenagers do, like young ladies do, and young guys. And they got a little bit of air on a smaller hill, and then as they were coming to the steeper hill, the officer said it sounded like Nevaeh said slow down a little bit. But at that point it was too late. So when you come up that hill, and I've driven it a ton of times now, you can't, it's pitch dark out there at night, and you don't see the headlights coming towards you on the other side of the hill until you get to the very, very top. And in this case, Ella had told the deputies that she went up and was surprised by an oncoming vehicle that she thought was driving close to the center line. Actually, when the officer looked at the video, that was the cell phone video that Nevaeh had shot, it looked like it was not right in front of their car. It looked more like it was in the lane that it was supposed to be in. They were going northbound, that car was coming southbound. She said she was, surprised, startled by it, and swerved and lost control, and they hit a tree, and Nevaeh died on the scene. And Ella was injured but has recovered, although I think she has residual injuries because the the collision was so violent.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have questions? Because I could just talk about this.
No,
forever.
I mean, of course we do. I'm sure a lot of people do have questions, but we do appreciate you obviously going over this entire case, this entire story, because it is just not necessarily complicated, but there are a lot of moving parts. Because on one hand, you do have this horrible incident that happened on a holiday, no less, in West Michigan, and then you quickly discover that there are all these other incidences all on the same sort of patch of road and everything like that. I mean, when you first heard about this case, I mean, what kind of got you moving into the direction of this is something that we need to investigate?
Right.
I mean, because when the crash happened, of course, we reported it as a crash. We didn't necessarily know about the dangers of Jericho Avenue.
Well, and because it was Thanksgiving, it didn't maybe get exactly the same coverage that it might on any other day, but we did, of course, report that it happened, as you said. And then one of my colleagues, John Hogan, who is on our assignment desk, has been an exceptional reporter himself in his own right, a longtime Grand Rapids press reporter. He came across this case recently, maybe a couple months ago now. When he was doing court checks, he saw, oh, what's this? Someone's charged with, Ella Vesey was charged with felony, reckless driving causing death. And he sees that and he says, oh, what's this about? So he told me about it, so I went and I pulled the probable cause, and I see, because nobody knew the circumstances, or that, they were trying to get airborne, and that they were doing more than 100 miles an hour, and that had not been reported at all. So I then started digging into that, and I actually live in Belmont, which is not at all far from Rockford, and my kids, I have one who graduated from Rockford and one who's at the freshman center, and I didn't actually know that much about that hill, which is stunning to me. Although subsequently I asked my kid who graduated from there, he's like, oh yeah, Mom. It's like, yeah, the hill, people jump it, that's a whole thing. And I'm so glad that I know that now, because I'm talking to my freshman who just turned 16. So every parent out there knows your kid leaves and they take off in the car, and you say, please God, right?
Yeah,
please God, keep them safe. So I'm talking to my freshman about that a whole lot. Okay, where were we? John Hogan told me about the court case, and then I went knocking on doors, and one of the folks there, knocking on doors on Jericho between Prose and 10 Mile, and one of the very nice neighbors had been there since 60-something, and was like, oh yeah, 2 boys died. 1966. We lost 2 boys who were doing the same thing. So that's when I started really digging and looking at the prior cases, and a lot of neighbors gave me information. And then I saw Ella, and by the way, Nevaeh's mom has been very supportive of Ella. Ella pleaded no contest yesterday to a misdemeanor in Kent County Circuit Court, and Nevaeh's mom was in the courtroom to support Ella. She was telling me she just wanted to make sure right away, pretty quickly, that Ella knew that she doesn't blame her, and that she forgives her, and that these girls were best friends, So, so she pleaded no contest yesterday to a misdemeanor, so she was able to plead it down to a misdemeanor. But I noticed in the court record that Kerry Sawyer is her defense attorney, and I know he's been around for a long time, and I know him well, so I reached out to him right away, and he, as I was interviewed, and a lot of times, this was before the case, she only pleaded yesterday, so the case was still pending and open. A lot of times defense attorneys are like, yeah, we're not going to talk about that to you, media, get away from us. Kerry was immediately like, come on over. And the reason he says that he was like, come on over, was because in 1966, he was an 8th grader in Rockford. And the 2 boys that died in 1966 were friends of Kerry Sawyer's. So he's telling me about this during the interview. He's like, yeah, everybody knows about that hill. He's like, I know it doesn't excuse the mistakes made that night, but he's like, this has been known for decades, and this has caused so much, death and injuries. Something needs to be done. There needs to be better signage. It's 55 right now, because it's not posted. So that just means it's by default 55. Drop the speed limit to 45. I mean, he's like, can we shave that hill down? Which I know is like incredibly expensive and probably not even something that's doable. although I did see that, so we had the two boys, 15-year-old and 16-year-old, Tom Darling and Steve McConnell, who died when they were, according to people who know about this, that they were going too fast and jumping the hill. So, and then in 1978, Rick Armstrong, he was 17. Tom and Steve were 15 and 16. Rick was 17. And after Rick died, right there on the steep part of that hill, students in Rockford came together and gathered 1,000 signatures on a petition to say, Road Commission, please fix this, do something, because as long as this is here, people are going to be jumping it and they're going to die. And FYI, the high school is, 3/4 of a mile south of here. They're like, this is, and so the Road Commission back then, because I looked at a bunch of Grand Rapids Press articles from the late 70s, the Road Commission said, yeah, we're going to study that, we're going to do an engineering study, we're going to see what we can do. I never was able to determine what that study specifically found. I couldn't find, I did submit a public records request to the Kent County Road Commission, and that was not included in what they sent me, like stuff from, they probably don't even have those records anymore. I'm sure the retention period is gone and those have been long destroyed, likely. But hang on, see, where was I talk about rabbit holes, right?
Right, yeah, absolutely. There's just so many moving parts about this whole entire story.
Hang on, I was on a point. What was it? Oh, the Road Commission, they were trying to get the Road Commission to make changes, but then subsequently I found out that in 79, that road was designated a natural beauty road, which means that the Road Commission cannot do anything to it, can't make changes, can't cut trees. And the Road Commission did send me some letters and documents from the early 90s. This is around when the high school was being built there, and there was concern about the road and the really steep hill. And in that instance, the neighbors were actually saying they did not want, at least according to the press articles, the neighbors were saying, we don't want this to be cut down, we don't want it to be widened, we don't want it to be changed, that's going to cause more traffic, we're going to have more problems. Thus the natural beauty designation, and nothing was changed. And that beauty designation has been on there for a long time, off and on. I think they might have taken it off. It might still be off right now because they needed to do like a water main project there, and they had to make some changes. So I don't know where the designation stands right now, but also understanding that, changing a road is an enormous undertaking, and road engineers, this is what they do. Nobody thinks that the Road Commission wants anyone to be hurt out there, and the Road Commission, by the way, declined to talk to me about Jericho there because somebody had filed a notice of an intent to file a lawsuit regarding that. So the county attorney was like, you can't talk to Target 8 about that. You're not talking.
Right.
There could be legal action going on. So the Road Commission could not talk to me about that road at all. Right now there's no posted speed limit, and there are 2 signs on either side of the steep hill that say advise 35 miles an hour. That's the only thing that's there right now, except there are some posters and stuff that have been put up by people who know and love Nevaeh, who was just this incredible woman who was known for giving great advice. She was like the advice giver at Northview, and the Northview community loved her. She was a mentor to younger students. Her favorite saying, her mom said, was "love harder," which I have not heard that, but how awesome is that? I'm getting chills just thinking about this. She was like, love harder, people. That's Nevaeh. She was all about love and empathy, and also incredibly hardworking. She did like 500-meter swims or something with the swim team. I'm like, I didn't even know that was a thing. Her thing was long-distance swimming.
Right.
Sorry, Nevaeh is just this incredible woman, and it's just heartbreaking that she was lost. But I'm like, okay, people, if you know anybody who drives around there, if you're not aware of that really sharp incline and the sudden drop, make sure you warn everyone you know that this is deadly. This is deadly. So it's killed 4 teenagers. Now that's over 60 years. So some people would say that's not that much. That's not that frequent. Parents might say it's frequent enough, and the results are severe enough. I mean, that's the thing when you're going that fast. I mean, the devastation that happens from that. And then there were also just accidents that didn't kill people. And I was digging through, by the way, if you want to know about traffic crashes, go to Michigan Traffic Crash Facts, the website, MTCF. It's the database that's maintained by like state police and the Office of Highway Safety Planning and stuff. It is fascinating reading. If you want to go in there and see what's happening on your street, you can look up like every accident, and it's so fascinating. But this is what I do at night before I go to bed. But I would find these UD10s, these forms, that the officers fill out, and it would say in their scrawling handwriting, passenger says they were trying to catch air. It's fun to drive fast. They were doing 80 to 100. I mean, this is documented on these UD10s over time, and those are the cases where no one died. So
it is a developing trend down that stretch. I mean, you even drove down it. You mentioned that you didn't really know about it until you started digging more and more into this story, and then actually driving down there, and you weren't going 100 miles an hour, like maybe you're, excessive speeding down there. But would you say that even just going the posted or the believed 45, 55 speed limit, that it's still relatively scary driving down there, especially at night?
There's just no lights back there. The
Right.
trees block everything, so it's just pitch dark, and it's pretty narrow. Even if at the normal, and certainly if there were any weather conditions, certainly it can be very scary. And also a shout out to Nikki and Jamie Feldkamp, who I interviewed for the story. They live in the River Bluffs right there to the west of where the accident happened, and they sat down and talked to me about what was an incredibly traumatic night for them. And what it's like living near that road. And they have 3 drivers themselves, young drivers themselves at home, and I think they're soon going to have 2 more. So they've got kids, and they worry about this all the time. And they both heard Thanksgiving night, it was around 8:30, what Nikki described as just an explosion. And she knew right away. She said she could hear the metal. She just knew, so she called 911. She ran outside, and she stood there, and she said it was just silence. And she's like, why am I not hearing anything? She's on the phone with 911, and then Ella, what turned out to be Ella, started screaming for help. And so Nikki and Jamie ran through the backyard to get there on scene to do anything they could to help. And they said that, the car was split in 2, and it wasn't even clear that there was a second woman there. They thought it was just Ella. And so when Ella started screaming, "Where's my friend?" they were like, "What are you talking about?" And so she was yards away under another part of the car. But the Feldkamps were really, really important and to telling the story, their perspective of the raw trauma of that night, and kind of taking us to the scene. That was so important. And one of their kids was home that night, the Feldkamps, but the other kids were out with other relatives, but you just never really know where your kids are. So they were saying that as they were running through the yard, they were saying, "Please don't let me see the color of my kid's car." You know what I mean?
Right.
And
that's every parent's honestly worst nightmare. And you even mentioned that, you're having kids that go to Rockford and, know about this jumping trend, this hill jumping trend. As a parent yourself, as somebody who has been around that area, what really is your hope for this story to come out? Is it really just more so awareness for not only the students about the dangers, but also the parents to know, hey, this is happening, kids are adventurous by nature, they need to really understand what's going on with this?
I almost feel like it's almost like every year, I don't know, but it's almost like you have to say something every year, because as Carrie was saying, well, what's going to happen in 5 years? These kids aren't thinking about it in 5 years. They're not thinking about the young lady who lost her beautiful life. And he's like, who remembers what happened in 66? Me, or 78, or whatever. So do you say something about it every year? Do you try to raise awareness? And by the way, does that make it worse? So this morning I said a prayer, please don't let that story that I did cause any problems or any pain or any injuries, or please, no one think, that was a great idea.
Right.
Oh, God. So I just, but I know Nevaeh's mom, I'm guessing, would have preferred to have known about that. She would have preferred to have known that there was a hill and that was what kids were doing on it. So she could have talked to Nevaeh about it. who was, you know, a smart young lady and was so active, did all kinds of things, swim team, did dancer, soccer, restaurant server. I mean, she was, you know, any parent would be grateful and honored to have her and Ella as children.
Absolutely.
So,
All right. Well, Susan, again, we do appreciate you stopping by, but kind of looking forward a little bit more with this story. Obviously, there's things being done, litigation out there, a lot of potential news that will be coming out with all the different elements in the story in the near future. I mean, what are some of the things that you would recommend people kind of keeping an eye out for over the next maybe months, couple of weeks, years, maybe even just the nearest additions along with the story?
Of course, I would love for people to get involved and go to meetings like the Road Commission or something. The Road Commission will be like, thank you. You know, the Kent County Road Commission, by the way, has always been really responsive to us. It was really unusual and weird, and I know that there was this legal aspect of this. By the way, I don't really think there's going to be a lawsuit filed. I think that was like a procedural thing that was done as part of, even potentially part of the plea agreement related to Ella being able to plead no contest. I think no contest is something that's pleaded for civil liability reasons sometimes. So then maybe you need to file a notice of an intent to sue. I mean, I don't know, I don't have any information that that's actually going to happen. I also I'm not optimistic that anything's going to change on that road, because I'm not sure that there's anything they can do. I mean, I'm not a road engineer. You know, I know when they put a trail in right there, they have an amazing trail right there. They put up a guardrail, but not at the spot where it's really, really steep. I'm not suggesting that I know the answer to this, and I don't know that anything's going to change there. I guess all I can hope for is awareness. And by the way, if anyone wants to know how to measure the grade of hills, I figured that out.
The things you learn doing stories
I know.
like this.
So that hill is 14.4% grade. The state, like MDOT, and this is different because those are state trunk lines. This is a road that's maintained by the Kent County Road Commission. But the state guidelines for roads that have somewhat similar characteristics, it's really hard to compare these roads. It's like apples and oranges. But that's a 14.4% grade, and the maximum recommendation for that kind of road is 9% for a newly constructed road. An existing hill can stay as long as there's not a concentration of crashes. So then the question becomes, what does that mean? What's a concentration of crashes? And it's not what's happened there, which has been over, 6 decades. Right. That apparently is not. So, yeah. Just awareness. That's all we can hope for right now. But I can assure you that if anything's happening, I will be looking for it.
Right, absolutely.
And I will be updating.
I'm sure a lot of people are gaining awareness just from checking out the story. Again, I highly encourage everybody, if you haven't gotten the chance to, please go check it out. It is available to you right now. The full web article along with Susan's piece that aired in our 6 p.m. newscast yesterday. It's all on woodtv.com right now. If you're watching us on Facebook, we've got links for you down in the comments section and the description box as well.
Okay, Susan, by the way,
yes.
Thanks to Carter Gent, by the way.
Yes, absolutely.
He was a rock star.
Yes.
He's my photographer.
Yes, no, he did a fantastic job.
You put
as
it
well.
all together.
Yes,
He's fantastic.
Yeah.
And thank you to Nextstar for allowing me to do these deep dive kind of stories.
Yes, no, well, we're happy that you're able to do them because every single one is just incredible, and this one is no different. So thank you, Susan, for doing that, and thank you again for coming on today. We really do appreciate it.
Thanks.
Of course. I want to thank everybody else for tuning into this latest edition of the Wood TV Live Desk. I'm Phil Pinarski, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.